Nate Chapman. He's a good friend of mine. And
no, you're good, man.
Always happens what I talk about.
It's all right.
But Nate Chapman was a good friend of mine. And I remember I was preparing to go to combat when he was killed in January of 2002. And I remember my wife at the SAM said, "Oh my God, Nate Chapman just got killed." Like, you know, it was on the news, and she's like, first American casualty, you know, first Green Beret killed, first American casualty. And I'm standing in the living room with my wife, you know, and it's like, she's like, she's about to say goodbye to me, and I'm about to go to combat. You know what that must do to her, you know? Like, Nate was a guy just like you. He was Ranger Regiment, great operator, SCUBA guy, 18 Echo. That's you. He's literally the same. You're the same people. Mm.
Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to Beyond the Beret. All right, so I have a first grouper, right?
Probably the first grouper.
I have a first grouper here, guys. Raymond, or do you go by Ray?
I go by Ray.
Yeah, so I have Ray here from First Group, guys. I wanted to bring him on because he is in the media space doing some plays here and there.
Yep.
But he's also a very decorated Green Beret, right? So I wanted to bring him on, have him tell you guys his story, and hopefully that'll affect, you know, you guys in one way, shape, or form, right? With all that to say, Ray, if you don't mind, just let the people know who you are, and then we'll jump right into it.
Absolutely. First of all, thanks for having me on, Jay. I appreciate it.
Of course.
Ray Lake, grew up in Austin, Texas. Short story, did 20 years in U.S. Army Special Forces. A lot of fun there, as you know. Deployed all over the world, had a great time doing it, worked with some fantastic human beings. And retired about 14 years ago and have done a lot of different things. And I find myself lucky enough to be here today. To kind of recap, grew up in Austin, Texas by way of Liverpool, England. So I'm actually a dual citizen.
Oh, are you?
Yeah, I was born in Liverpool, England. My dad was Air Force. And grew up in Austin. Grew up in Pflugerville, if there's any Texans out there that know where Pflugerville, Texas is. And graduated from high school in 1989. God, that seems so long ago. Had a great upbringing, great family, and just lucky to be here, man.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. So, how old were you when you moved to the States?
I was 3 years old.
Okay.
So born in 1970. 1973 came over. Funny enough, on my mother's passport. I was too young to have a passport.
Yeah.
So I came over on my mother's passport in 1973, straight to Austin, Texas, which my parents tell me I had an English accent when I was 3 years old. You know, you're speaking at 3.
Yeah.
Don't ask me to do an English accent. It's horrible. I've used it before. People are like, "Do you have a speech impediment?" No. That's actually my English accent.
How often do you get to go back to England?
The last time I was back in England was about 2 years ago.
I got you.
2021, is that right? Yeah, 2021. I went back over for about a month. And I saw all my relatives and cousins and uncles and aunties, and it was a lot of fun. So
you got a lot of family up there then?
I do. I still
have your mother's side or your dad's side?
Mother's side. Yeah.
I got you.
Yeah, Dad is full American.
Yeah.
100% Texan. But Mom's English. She's got a sister over there, so a lot of great family in England.
That's awesome.
And I want to see them more.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, so now you moved to Texas.
Yep.
How was upbringing for you? So you mentioned that your dad was military. Was it your typical strict, dress right dress, military dad, or how was that for you?
My dad was strict. He had been Air Force. He was an Air Force aviations guy. It was strict, but more because he was more of a disciplinarian. Yeah. But that was good for me. I loved it. Loving family, great upbringing, lots of fun things to do in Austin, Texas, lots of shenanigans. I would say the highlight of my youth was probably being outside. Yeah. In Texas in the 70s, we rode bicycles everywhere, and we played war in the woods, and we went fishing, and we did all kinds of... We had forts. Yeah. You know, we did outdoorsy things. Our parents would say, when on the weekends, go away and don't come back until dinner time. And they didn't care where we were. No GPS, no cell phones. And, you know, you see memes all the time about being a kid that grew up in the 70s and 80s and what that was like. You were gone. Yeah. And your parents didn't care. And you came back and you had scars and boo-boos and you lost your glasses. And,
things have changed for sure.
Things have changed, yeah. But great upbringing. Austin was a great place to grow up. Music, food. Yeah. And, I had a ton of great friends growing up, and I grew up on for those that know Austin, Texas, I grew up in a place called the East Side, which was the rough side of Austin. Mainly African American, Hispanic, so gangs and some for Texas.
Yeah,
I'm not talking like Chicago, New York gangs,
but
like still gangs and still some violence.
Yeah.
But I navigated all that. I think because I had good parents, and I kind of knew right from wrong even at a young age. And the friends I had were, even though they might be bad, they were like suburb bad. You know, like East Austin suburb. Okay, yeah. But it was a great upbringing. I loved it. And when I was in 7th grade, my mom and dad decided that we needed to move out into the suburbs to get away because it was starting to get a little too rough. So we moved to a place called Pflugerville, Texas. Real place. Pfluger, Ville. German. There's a lot of German ancestry in Texas. So moved to Pflugerville and graduated from Pflugerville High School in 1989.
Yeah. So after that, did you go towards college or did you go straight into the military?
So from an early age, talking about living in East Austin, our house was in the direct flight path of Bergstrom Air Force Base, which was in the southern part of Austin. And so every day I would see military aircraft flying overhead. Yeah. So you got military aircraft flying overhead, which I fell in love with. I mean, I'm talking, they were like 500 feet above. We were on the glide path for the runway for the air base. So I quickly learned about all the military aircraft and movies like Top Gun and Rambo and all these other movies were out, and I immediately figured out that I wanted to get away from Austin, Texas and see the world and explore. And so I think my dad being in the military, my grandfather on my dad's side had been in the Navy, and I was just surrounded by a lot of like-minded individuals in junior high and high school who were kind of mechanically oriented. We took wood shop together. Eventually you gravitate, it was kind of, I was a nerd. I was a little bit of a Steve Urkel nerd, but then mechanically oriented, and then the military kind of caught hold. And I did Naval Sea Cadets.
Oh, nice.
Yep, I did Naval Sea Cadets. I'm proud to say I was kind of in the Navy. Went to Navy Basic out at San Diego when I was like 15 or 16. It was like 3 weeks. It was easy. Yeah. But I caught the bug, like military service bug. And I was like, I'm going to join. And my original idea was to become a Navy pilot. Yeah. But then these things crapped out on me. Yeah.
So I think these were like, you're the second guy that's happened to. Yeah. I interviewed Josh Martin. Okay. He's a pilot for 160th. Yep. I had him here not too long ago. Fantastic. He's out of Albuquerque. Okay. And same story. He grew up watching Top Gun, wanted to fly his entire life. He gravitated towards the Navy, but he got disqualified because of his eyes. Yeah. Yeah. So how did that develop? How did that go down for you?
Yeah, I mean, you there's options, right? When you're a kid and you want to go in the military. My parents were supportive. I think that's an important thing. We talked about the family structure and being supportive. I had a supportive family. My mom and dad both realized that military service would probably be good. Yeah. We didn't really have money for college. My parents told me early on, we have money for one person to go to college. Yeah. And I was like, well, I don't really want to go to college. I want to get out of here, and I want to see the world, and I want to jump out of airplanes. Yeah. I want to fly planes. I had all these crazy ideas. So when I was told I couldn't be a pilot because my eyesight was bad, I started looking at other options. Thought about the Navy SEAL community, but then found out about Green Berets from a library book that I still have. I still have the Green Beret library book. And
you remember the name of that book?
I think it's called The Green Berets. And it was written by a guy named Hans Halberstadt. Okay. And the groups that were in there no longer exist. It was 11th and 12th Special Forces, which were the reserve. Right? We got 19th and 20th now, National Guard, but there were reserve groups, 11th and 12th. And I read all about these reserve Special Forces groups. Beautiful color photos, guys doing things downrange, and I was like, that's really cool. So that was an inkling. Of course, there was no 18 X-ray program. Yeah. So we went down. My mom had to sign me into the Army because I was 17. I went into the delayed entry program in 1987, 88, and then I graduated in 89. And and I picked, the MOS I picked was parachute rigger, because parachute rigger guaranteed me, according to my recruiters, that I would be in an airborne unit for my entire career, no matter what. Yeah. They were like, no matter what happens, if you're a rigger, you're going to be an airborne, SF, Ranger units your whole career.
Was that the case?
Well, yeah, it would have been. Yeah. It would have been the case if I had stayed a rigger, I guess. Yeah. So I joined as a rigger. I was a parachute rigger, 43 Echo. Nice. In 1989. I was off to basic.
How was basic training in AIT for you?
I mean, basic was fun. I went to Fort Leonard Wood, also known as Lost in the Woods, Missouri.
Been there, yeah.
Did you go? You've been there? Okay,
yeah.
Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri. It was magical for me.
Yeah.
I was very naive and very idealistic, so everything was an adventure. Like, get on this bus. I got on a bus in San Antonio at the MEPS station, gave a quick kiss to my mother goodbye, and I was off for the adventure. Drove a bus from San Antonio, Texas, up to Missouri. Got to Fort Leonard Wood. It's 1989, so drill sergeants were a little different than they are now.
I could imagine.
They like to put their hands on you. So there's a lot of hands-on. When we talk about hands-on training, it was like hands-on training or hands-on training. So you get hands put on you at Fort Leonard Wood, and it was magical. I was young, and I was interested in everything to do about the military. When you're young, sleep doesn't really matter. You're like, get up at 4 a.m. Sure. Go to bed at 10. Sure. Wax the hallways? Okay. Like, I was down for whatever. What you should know about me, besides the amazing physique you see right now in front of you, back then I was 98 pounds.
Oh, wow.
I was a 98-pound weakling. I could run really fast. I played football. My main thing in football in high school was to run fast and not get hit, because if I got hit, I just disappeared. I turned into pink man. Get hit with an EFP.
Yeah.
So I could run really fast, but they told me in basic training, I didn't know this, but they said, Lake, you are going to be going to Airborne school after basic, because you have to jump in AIT as a rigger.
Yeah.
And I was like,
oh nice.
Okay, I got to jump in AIT. I got to go to jump school next school. And my drill sergeant at the time said, Lake, the problem is you don't weigh enough to activate the parachute. Which I guess the minimum weight was like 130. And I weighed 98 pounds. And I think a week after basic training, I was like 104, right? Because you're doing a lot of PT, eating a lot of food, right? And he's like, we got to get you up to 130 before you leave. Like, you won't open the parachute. Now, like, maybe with the uniform and the parachute, maybe if you're lucky, but that's a real thing. Like, how much weight does it take to activate a parachute? So I was like, okay, Drill Sergeant Roger. So I got double rations.
Nice.
I got to go in at the beginning of the line every time. And there was 3 of us, 3 bean poles. Me, a guy named Green, and a guy named Worrell. And we were all underweight.
It's funny you remember those names from like 1980.
Because we were like hanging out. We were all going to go to jump school together. And we were all going to be riggers. And so we all got to go in first. We could get extra bread. It wasn't everything. You get extra bread, extra milk. And maybe an extra dessert. And you could stay, because you got to go in early. You didn't have to get up as soon as you were done. I could stay until the last person in my
platoon. Eat all your food.
Eat all the food. And on a few notable occasions, like the drill sergeant would like bring extra bread back to the barracks and like make us stand outside in the quad and eat bread. That was a real thing. It's like, eat this bread. And you're like forced eating, like forced hydration. Forced eating for my narrow ass. Lots of pull-ups. They made us do lots of pull-ups, because they said you're going to have to navigate the parachute, the T10, pull down on the riser. Again, I took all this in stride. Like, Roger, like, I was wide-eyed and like, you tell me what to do, I will do it. I was a good little ranger. And so basic training was amazing. I had a great time. PT, Basic training was hard. I remember it being hard. I remember being tired. I remember waxing the buffer crew drills, buffing the hallway, shining your boots. You're learning all those things to be a soldier. And it's not a problem, because you're like, it's all new. And I was excited about it. I do remember episodically different people having hard times, like, I don't know if I can do this. And I was like, where did you come from? This is amazing. This is fun. Like, and again, I think it's because I grew up in Texas. My parents made me stay outdoors. And it was just my mental, the mental aspect of basic training and any type of arduous thing is if you have to do it anyway, you might as well make it fun. And you might as well accept it. And so, I had a great time in basic training.
How was Airborne school for you? Were you excited there, or was there a little fear factor there?
Great question. Jump school got real fast, because when you show up to jump school, if I had gone to AIT, maybe I would be a little more comfortable. But coming straight from basic, you're very regimented, and then you get to jump school, and there were Navy SEALs there, and there were guys who were going to the Q course, and there were Rangers there, and there were Rangers on post. And the guys going to 82nd, everyone got really mature and really intense really fast. And it was like, whoa, this is the big leagues. Plus, there were foreigners there. There was a full colonel in my class. I don't remember how he got there, but it was a full colonel. I think he was an Air Force guy in my class. I'm like, I've never seen a colonel that close before. You know?
Can I touch him, make sure
it's real? Yeah, I had never seen a colonel that close. Like, I remember saluting with the wrong hand one day because I was so nervous. I was like, oh my God, he's like a general. He's going to be a general. I have to salute with both hands. And, but yeah, jump school was amazing. As you know, running in boots, that was interesting. I had not done that previous. The sand, you remember the sand pits?
Yeah.
You were rolling around making sugar cookies. That was fun. But again, jump school was technical. And the fear of jumping out of an airplane really wasn't, I don't remember having time to be afraid about jumping out of airplanes. And I think the jump school, Airborne school did a great job of progression. We talked about progression, crawl, walk, run. I think that was my first time seeing crawl, walk, run laid out. Yeah. Because you have the towers, you know, you've got the mini towers, the big towers, which is amazing. Coney Island attraction, you get to actually parachute down. Yeah. It was a lot of fun. And, you know, they tell you if the wind blows the wrong way, you get blown into the tower and you might get hung up for hours. And that never happened to me. But yeah. Again, I wasn't like, oh, that's going to happen. I was just really happy and like excited to be there.
That's awesome.
And yeah, jump school went great. I had no problems in jump school. Did the 5 jumps, no injuries. But when I was at jump school, I got to tell you this quick story. I didn't have an MOS yet, remember? Yeah. I'm supposed to go to rigger school. Yeah. But the RIP instructors and the Ranger Battalion recruiters came by, jump school, looking at some of these guys who were infantry already, been through Sand Hill or Harmony Church. They were 11 Bravos who had a jump contract going to the 82nd, 101st. And I was like, I'm going to go to the Ranger recruiting event. So I did. I went to the room and I sat down with a bunch of other prospective RIP students. And I'm all happy. I'm going to be a Ranger. I'm going to be a rigger. I'm going to be a Ranger because rigger sounds boring now. Ranger sounds good. So the guy gives a brief and there's Zodiacs and there's dudes with camouflage. And I'm like, yes, Ranger. And I'm looking around like, and the staff sergeant goes, okay, I'm going to go down the line. Tell me your MOS. Guys were telling MOSs 11 series, 13 series, 12 series, all these different series. He's like, Roger. He gets to me. I stand up. Staff Sergeant, Private Lake, 43 Echo. He goes, what the fuck is that? Like, parachute rigger. He's like, sit down. We already got our riggers. I'm like, brr. I was like, it was like somebody unraveled my belly button. And I was like, and I just kind of eased down the chair. I was like, took all the wind out of my sails for about 30 seconds. Yeah. And the optimist in me says, well, you know what? I'm going to do it anyway. Yeah. He says, I can't do it. Who is he? He doesn't know anything. Yeah. I know the Army. I've been in the Army for 2 months. So after it was over, I went up and talked to him and he said, man, you can't, you know, like that's not how it works. You have a contract. And that's when I learned that was my first punch in the face with admin and like the legalities of being in the Army. Like you have a contract. The contract says you'll be a 43 Echo. The Army needs 43 Echoes. He was breaking it down for me, Barney Rebel style. If we allow you to break that contract and we change your contract and something happens to you in infantry school, because you'd still have to go to 11 Bravo AIT, you could get out and then we'd lose you. So the Army has a path for you. I suggest you stick with the path. And I understood. And I was like, roger that. But I remember, I'll fast forward to the end of jump school. I'm in formation at the end of jump school. We're getting our berets, all that good stuff. We're getting our wings. And these guys have these chits to go to RIP. RIP is like right across the street. Yeah. And out of the corner of my eye, I can see all of these RIP instructors walking over the formation with their black berets on. I'm so excited. I'm like, oh my God, these guys they're gonna have such a great time. And then they start just absolutely grilling these guys and just flutter kicks, burpees, get down, low crawl. And I'm like, oh man, I wish that was me. And the chits that everyone had, this chit said you had been selected to go to RIP and you were good to go. You had paperwork. They started letting them go. And all these little chits were blowing in the breeze. And my dumb ass is like, I'm going to pick one up. So I remember picking up a chit and I started walking over to the RIP formation. And the staff sergeant that had been at the recruiting was like, whoa, Lake, what are you doing? I'm like, I got a chit? He's like, he goes, take your ass over there and get back in formation. You're graduating from jump school. You're going to AIT at Fort Lee. You're not staying here. I was like, but I got a chit. I can pick up 2. He's like, no, that's not how it works. So that was me, man. I was so idealistic. But yeah, jump school went great, man.
Yeah. So you get done with jump school. Now what's next? MOS and
AIT.
Then what?
Yeah, absolutely. Went straight into AIT at Fort Lee, Virginia, just down the road, just outside of Richmond. And that's where the quartermaster school is. So all logistics, all supply, transportation stuff. It was longer than basic and jump school. It was 3 months long. And I had fun with it. The weather started to change, and I wrote in my notes last night, what do I remember about AIT? The thing I remember about AIT, and this is going to sound funny, is snow. Now, you might ask yourself, why would you know about snow? Well, I started basic training in July. Yeah. June, July. August, September was jump school. Mm-hmm. Summer, you're in the South. It's hot as hell. Then I get to Fort Lee, Virginia in October, and I'm in AIT in November, and then the first snow comes in Virginia. Now, I'm from Texas. I've seen snow before, but not like this. This was that white, fluffy, thick, and it stuck on the ground. Yeah. So here I am. Again, I'm idealistic. I'm young. I'm still 18, and I'm like, this is the greatest thing ever. Snow is amazing. I'm outside playing in it, snowball, when I can. Yeah. And the drill sergeants are like, what is wrong with this black kid? This black kid loves snow. I'm like, it's the greatest. It's so cool. And I grew up in Texas. And it's always 100 degrees in Texas. Yeah. It's just miserable. So for me, that was, the snow was amazing. I was like, this snow is so fun. It's so cool. It leaves tracks everywhere. And you can see animal footprints. Yeah. Again, I was a child still. I was a child soldier. Yeah. But that's the one memory that always sticks with me about AIT is great training. Yeah. You learn how to be a rigger. The rigger motto is, I will be sure always, because you're dealing with a life support device, right? Mm-hmm. The parachute. I had a natural knack for it. I was fairly fastidious, so folding the parachute and all that, I like that. I like the clean lines, folding the paracord. I loved all of it. Heavy drop, get big vehicles down on the ground. Maintenance, okay. I learned how to sew. I learned a skill. Great, this is transferable. So AIT in itself was fantastic. I loved all the phases of being a rigger. Quickly mastered that stuff. Had no problem graduating from AIT. Enjoyed the snow. We had a weekend, I think it was Veterans Day weekend. I got to go to, what's the name of that? There's an amusement park that's right up the road from here. King's Dominion? Yeah. I've been to Six Flags. Yeah. But I've never been to this was Veterans Day weekend. And for some reason, it was the middle of the week. Veterans Day was middle of the week that year. There was nobody there. So me and about 6 other riggers spent the entire day at King's Dominion. And we crushed it. I've never ridden that many roller coasters in one day. I must have rode about 11 roller coasters. I should have been sick, but you're just, you're 18. Yeah. You're like, whatever. So, so snow, roller coasters, and I did. I too.
So where do you think because it sounds like not only did you want to join, but you're having a good old time. So where did the passion to serve, the wanting to do like the hardest, whether it's Ranger Bat, where do you think all of that came from? Because I feel like that's something that's lacking nowadays, especially within our community. A lot of, folks don't want to serve, whether it's tied back to slavery or the country not caring for them. Where did all that passion and just the willingness to serve come from at such an early age?
Yeah, I have to think that a lot of the passion to serve my country came from, I think, the examples that my father set, and the example that I had an uncle who had actually been in Special Forces. Mm-hmm. And when I say uncle, he wasn't actually a family member, blood uncle, but he was really good friends with my dad. And so I knew that service to your country was important. And I knew that someone had to do it, and I also knew that it would lead to. I mean, I'll be honest. Some of it was selfish. It was it would lead to better things for me, and it would be an amazing opportunity. So the service came from a bunch of different areas. I didn't have necessarily. I do have a patriotic stream of thought consciously and constantly. Public service, civic service, I think is very important to the country. Somebody has to do that, right? We have served, and we have served for various reasons. And, you hear guys say, I serve for the brothers to my left and right. That is very true. That is why you serve. That is why you're there. That is why you do what you do. But our country, if we enjoy the freedoms we have, our country needs patriots to stand up and serve. And it doesn't have to be in the military. Yeah. Peace Corps. Serve in the State Department, be a teacher, something that's going to be bigger than you and probably take some sacrifice, right? Yeah. All those jobs I mentioned to you just now don't necessarily pay very well. They don't pay as Google or Facebook or Amazon, but they are lucrative in other ways. And I think you talked on one of your earlier podcasts about if you added up all the other benefits you get in the military, it's actually it's a great job. Yeah. It's a great career.
Yeah. I just get so frustrated because, and I'm sure you see it too with the current youth, they make excuses and they use what, our ancestors went through as a reason not to serve. I often hear, well, this country doesn't care about us, so why should we serve for it? Or, like they treat us like crap. Like, why are we going to put our lives on the line? And I always, and it fires me up because I'm like, well, if you don't do it, who will? And this is by far still the greatest country on earth.
It is.
And it fires me up, right? Because I'm like, dude, you don't understand. Like, someone is sacrificing something for you just to be able to type what you're typing in the comment section right now.
Absolutely.
In most countries, people can't say that, nor can they do it.
Yeah, they would be censored, they would be found, and they would be prosecuted for for speaking their opinion. Yeah. You hit on a great point. I don't ignore the fact that African American and other minorities, dating back to the very beginning of this country, have been disenfranchised and have been mistreated, woefully mistreated. We just had Native American, Indigenous Peoples Month and recognizing Indigenous peoples. Horrible history with the U.S. and Indigenous peoples. We've had a horrible history with African Americans, Asian Americans, Hispanic Americans, Latin Americans. So recognize that first of all. But somebody has to have the bigger dialogue and be able to talk about that. I think that's something our country lacks, is the ability to have a dialogue and then move past it. Part of that move past it takes two to tango. Yes, the country has to make changes. The government, our public policy, the population, right? Those people that are still living with the idea that not every human, not every American is equal. Yeah. There are Americans who believe that not every American is equal, that they are better somehow because of the color of their skin, their religion, their background, their economic status. But as a person of color, I think it's important to take that as a challenge. Yes. I'm going to step up to that challenge. I look at it as an opportunity. My job is to change your mind, to educate you. Racism, sexism, ageism, all these things are biases that can be met with education and dialogue. I agree. Now, if you meet that with education and dialogue, and that person or group of persons still continues to have their thought process, then you've done the best you can. At least you had the dialogue. You presented your side of the argument with maybe facts and statistics and reasoning. And if they stay with their dogmatic ideas that the races aren't equal and that men are better than women and that, what your economic status determines your path and that there is no path to economic freedom or economic success unless you came from that, then, okay, we had a dialogue and at least we established our points. After being presented the facts and statistics from me, your rebuttal is, it doesn't matter. I'm gonna still think the way. At least we had that opportunity. I think it's important if you are the affected population or person to be that person who's going to stand up and say those things. Yeah. And I think that runs very parallel with my idea of patriotism and standing up and volunteering and being part of something bigger than myself. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, because that's like, I've done it, you've done it, and now I'm trying to show the youth, like, hey, what your notion is of, hey, we shouldn't do it because X, Y, and Z. That's not the case, right? Like, here's a different perspective, right? And I think it's working just fine. Now, you get done with the IT and you go where, and how did that lead you to special operations? I got, when you're in AIT, as you know, they, at least for me, they said, you got to volunteer for where you wanted to go. Yeah. Do you want to stay CONUS or OCONUS? That was the first question. And then if you wanted to stay CONUS, where do you want to be stationed? Well, I immediately, because I have the wanderlust bug. I've always had it. I love to travel overseas. I was like, overseas, definitely. Now, at that time, there was two places, Europe or Korea. Japan might have been on there, but I remember Europe. And I was like, big circle, big crayon around Europe. I want to go to Europe. And I got my wish. Me and one other guy, I'll give him a shout out. His name's Carl Behrens. Hi, Carl. Carl and I both got orders for Germany. Nice. Super excited. I remember when they read those, we were the only two. Everyone else got Fort Bragg, Fort Campbell, Fort Lewis. And I was like, we're going to Germany. So excited. So super excited. I got to give a quick caveat. I left AIT, went back to Texas. It's Christmas time now.
Nice.
And I've got orders for Germany. Super excited. And then what happens? In December of 1989, we invade Panama. So my young, naive paratrooper self says, I need to go to Panama. I'm telling you, the way the Army functions had still not kicked in. And this is how naive, but also idealistic and how optimistic I was. I was like, I'm a paratrooper. Paratroopers are jumping in. Yeah. That's where I should be. I'm a rigger. I can rig some gear. I can do something. I can help out the war effort. And look back, I'm like, God, you're such an idiot. But it was cute. So I went down to a recruiter's office in Kentucky. We went up to Kentucky for Christmas that year. And I knocked on the door and I went in and I had my Class A's on because I was at church.
Yeah.
And I said, hello, I am Private Lake. I'm a paratrooper. I'm a parachute rigger. I'm volunteering for duty in Panama. And they were like, I could tell they were dumbfounded. I feel bad for them because they were probably like, is this a joke? Are we on TV right now? They were like, come in here, Private, and sit down. I was like, Roger that, Staff Sergeant. Went in. He was like, what are you talking about? I'm like, Panama. And he goes, yeah, it's already happening. It's probably going to be over in a few days or a few weeks. I'm like, yes, but I'm here now, and I am a paratrooper. As you can see, I have rigger wings. I can rig equipment for airdrop. If we need to resupply people, I'm happy to go. And they were like, that's not how it works. Again, I get that's not how it works, dummy. You got orders? And I'm like, Roger, I brought my orders with me. Because I'm thinking if they see my orders, maybe we can change them. Just like scratch through Germany, put Panama, good to go. And they were like, that's not how it works. You got to go to Germany. You got orders. And I'm like, oh, but it's a war. And that's what I'm supposed to do. I'm supposed to go to war. So that didn't happen. But I really did that. I really did that. And it was ridiculous. So I went did Christmas leave, got on a plane and flew from Austin, Texas over to Frankfurt, Germany. Landed in Frankfurt, Germany with my buddy Carl. We back then you in processed at a base called Rhein-Main Air Base. It's not there anymore. We have Ramstein, but this was Rhein-Main in Frankfurt. In process, they said, okay, it's going to take a couple of days to get your orders. You private stay in the barracks. Cool. So I'm in Germany. It's January of 1990. January of 1990. Is that right? Yeah. And super excited to be there. Germany, great. And the first thing I got to say is I'm in Germany. You can drink.
Yeah.
I'm 19
no age
years
limit.
old. No age limit. The guy's like, if you guys want, you guys can go downtown and grab some beers or some bratwurst. We're like, we can drink. Let's go drink. So we went and drank, and we had beers. It was great. A couple of days later, they brought us in. The admin guy brought us in and said, hey, got some good news and got some bad news. You want the good news first or bad news? We were like, I'm like, hey, let's end on a high note. I'm like, give me the bad news. So he says, there's no positions for privates here in Germany. They're all taken up. They screwed up when they sent you guys here, but there's no positions. Now we can send you back to the States, or there's a good news option too, but it's different than maybe what you thought. And I was like, oh my goodness, where are we going to go? We're going to go to Korea. We're going to go back to Bragg. And the guy goes, there are positions in Italy. And I was like, how is it? Like, this went from good news to better news. Italy? And the guy's like, yeah, there's 2 positions in Italy at Camp Darby, Italy, which is just outside of Pisa. If you guys are okay, we'll amend your orders a little bit, and we'll send. You're still in Europe. You're still in the ETO, European Theater of Operations, and you'll go to Italy. And we were like, yeah, that's even better. I love pizza. That's all I knew about Italy was they had pizza. So the reception was great, and we got our orders changed to the 24th Quartermaster Detachment in Italy as part of CTAF. Yeah, 3rd of the 325 was the Parachute Infantry Battalion we were assigned under. And Carl and I got on a train, not an airplane. We got on a train at the train station in Frankfurt, and we took like a overnight train. It was like overnight plus. It was like 36 hours to get down to Pisa, Italy. Because of course the Army bought the cheapest train ticket. It was magical. I didn't care. Like if you would told me now to get on a train and be on a train for 36 hours, I'd like, no, there's got to be a bullet train. It's like 2 hours. But when you're a private and someone they gave me a cash advance. I still hadn't been paid from basic. They gave me a cash advance, and they gave me my orders, and I had my duffel bag, and we had our Class A's on. And we got on the train, and we were like, no supervision. 2 privates on a train with no supervision and like $200 in 1990. Oh, man. It was amazing. And we had a great time. Every stop we'd get off and grab some bread, some wine, cheese. and you just watching the countryside roll by. Yeah. Very formative for me as a young man. I was like, okay, I'm doing something interesting and important and fun, and it was great.
Leading up to that point, any regrets, or would you have done anything differently, or you were just taking it all in?
I would not have, man. I mean, look where I am right now. I'm in this studio with you, having this great conversation. Everything that I've done in my career has led up to this point, and honestly, I've had a great life, a great career, and so I wouldn't change a thing. Because I could have said I want to go back to the States and be in the 82nd, or send me back, I want to change my MOS, but who knows where that would have led. I accept my life how it is, man. It was fantastic. And up to this point, I mean, I'm on a train in Italy with a friend that I've known for now, 2 months now, 3 months, and he's just as laid back as I am. Carl Barron's from Fergus Falls, Minnesota. As Minnesota as they come. And I'm from Texas, so we had tons to talk about. It was fantastic.
That's another thing that I always tell people. I was like being in the service or being in the military, you get to meet, folks from all walks of life, and some of those folks will become your lifelong friends.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I still keep in touch with Carl. He lives in Albuquerque.
There you go.
He's a great friend, and I saw him earlier this year. I saw him in May.
Oh, that's awesome.
We've been friends now for 30 some odd years.
Yeah.
At least 35 years.
Yeah, that's a plus that the military gives you. So now you get to Italy. Mm-hmm. How was that, I guess not a deployment, but how was that duty station for you?
Italy was great. And I would say for any aspiring young soldiers or Marines or Navy or Air Force folks, if you have a choice between being stationed in the States and being stationed overseas, first of all, really give a hard consideration to being overseas. I think it gives you a little bit of an edge in terms of your mental acuity and the ability to learn a new language. I got to go to Italian Head Start. It's not long, awesome. But it gets your mind working on a different plane when you learn a new language. There's typically a cost of living allowance bump. That's good for you and your family. And you're just on the forward edge, right? You're like out there. You're already forward deployed. If something happens in that contingency area, you might get the nod to go do your job downrange in a diplomatic military sort of scenario. So Italy was fantastic. I had great leadership in Italy. Master Sergeant King, Clem King was my first sergeant. Sergeant Parker was my first squad leader. The Warehams. I mean, I just got just tons of great NCOs that even as a rigger in an airborne unit, great NCOs that did all of the things that NCOs are supposed to do. Right place, right time, right uniform. They had standards. They enforced those standards. They were that era from, they would have grown up in the Army in the 70s and 80s when it wasn't so great. They would have had some Vietnam vets. Some of them were Vietnam vets themselves. Just great, good, solid NCO leadership. And airborne unit, so you're on jump status. You're in Italy. I got my Italian wings like that. That was fun. Awesome. Great Italian food. I will tell you that in Italy, in the early 90s, the female population of Italy was pretty amazing. And being where I was stationed was right near the water.
Oh, nice.
So I was on the beach like every other weekend.
Yeah.
Again, I love the water. So, it was just a great overall experience. Highly recommend Italy as a first duty station.
Yeah, that's one choice I never got was overseas.
No?
It's always been Fort Riley, Kansas, and then Fort Bragg.
Man.
20 years.
I'm sorry. It was, I'm not going to lie, it was good. It was good. You probably missed out.
Yeah.
But, Italy's still there. That's a great thing. You can always go on vacation if you want.
And that's one thing that I, once my kids are a little bit older, I'm like, hey, every year we will go on vacation.
Yeah.
So they can get exposed to some of the things that I didn't get exposed to, right? So that's on the board. Now, how long was Germany? I mean, how long did you stay in Italy for?
I was in Italy for a little over 2 years.
Okay.
Came up on my first re-enlistment, and they wanted me to stay in Italy.
Yeah.
But I had actually met somebody, and she was going to be stationed in Germany.
Okay.
And so I said, okay, if she's going to be stationed in Germany as a medic, I should probably go to Germany. I asked the recruiter / re-enlistment NCO. He said, yep, we have rigger units in Germany. You can totally go to Germany if you want. And by the way, we're paying a bonus for doing a consecutive overseas tour. I didn't know about that. I was like, I'm very weak on the head, man.
Yeah.
Even up to this point. And I think by now I'm an E4. So I was like, great. Bonus, I get to go up to Germany. And then they threw in the college bonus. They said, hey, if you go, we'll also let you go to school for 6 months in Germany.
Yeah, college option.
College option. It was 6 months. I was like, great. You're going to pay me extra money. You're going to send me to Germany, and I get 6 months of college. Let's do it. So I re-enlisted and left Italy, sadly, and said, okay, bye, Italy. I'm going up to Germany. What you should know, I should back up real quick, because in Italy, I met my first ever Special Forces ODA.
In Italy?
In Italy. I came down to Italy for a jump series at the Italian Parachute School. Mm-hmm. They were a 10th group team. I don't remember the name. All I remember is if you cue AC/DC Back in Black, this tour bus pulls up and these rock stars get off with big hair, sunglasses, Fu Manchu. I mean, this is and I'm like, who are these guys? No name tapes, right? They're all fit and they get off, and it's a Special Forces ODA, a free fall ODA from 10th group. And I'm assuming from Bad Tolls at the time. And I was like, oh my God. And I worked with them for like a week. I was their rigger for a week, and I learned how to pack free fall parachutes. And that was my first inkling that there might be something to this Special Forces thing. Yeah. That was the first time. So I get up to Germany. I was in 5th Quartermaster Detachment, which is in Kaiserslautern, Germany. Great detachment. Loved it. Did some time with 10th Group proper once I got up there. And I was amazed with Special Forces guys. Germany was great. All the things you might imagine with Germany. Great food. Central to Europe. So traveled all over. Went to Paris. Went up to the Netherlands. Went to Belgium, took advantage of my time to travel. During that time, I had gotten married. So I was married to another soldier. She was a medic at Landstuhl Hospital. I know you've heard of Landstuhl. A lot of our guys, unfortunately, went through there. Had a kid.
Nice.
And but I should back up because I'm blown right through selection. But anyway, I'm in Germany. Germany was fantastic. I loved it. But the bug to go to Special Forces was there. It was knocking. So that's where I'll go next, if you ask me.
Yeah, I think that's a very common story. Like, guys don't know anything about Special Forces, and then they meet someone, whether it's a random medic or an entire team, and that plants that seed like, oh, there is more out there.
Absolutely.
So now you found out about, SF, which... Correct me if I'm wrong, but you've read about them earlier in a book.
Yeah, right? Yeah, but seeing them in real life, it's like, this is the real thing. And they were super nice. They were like, my name's Rick. And I'm like, I'm Private Lake, Specialist Lake. And they're like, hi, I'm Steve. I'm the team commander. Like, oh my God, this is a captain. And he called me Steve. And like, so you're like, they're rock stars. Right? Yeah. When you're an E4 in an airborne unit, SF is rock stars. Yeah. And I've seen that reciprocity when I was a team guy and I meet like an infantry uplift E5 and they're like, oh man, you guys are the real deal. Like, it's not that big a deal. Yeah. You can do it too. Yeah.
And I always tell guys, especially your bad apples, like, hey, if you go out there to big army and you're interacting with, that E4, that E5, know that you have a influence on that kid.
Absolutely.
So always be on your best behavior, be polite, and treat them like human beings.
Absolutely.
Because you're a recruiting tool for the regiment.
Absolutely. Right? I couldn't say it any better. You are an advocate. You are a recruiter yourself for SF, and you are you're a diplomat for the regiment, right? They might be getting their first look at Special Forces, and my mantra has always been, be nice to everyone you meet because you have no idea what impact you're going to make.
I agree 100%.
So it made an impact on me, obviously.
So now you just found out about SF. Like, what was where's your mindset at? How did you do any additional research, and how was the process getting a packet in to actually attend?
Yeah, great question. I did do more research. I talked to a Special Forces NCO that was married to one of my warrant officers. He was doing some kind of LNO job in Kaiserslautern, not in SF, like away from SF. Asked him a lot of questions about selection, and his wife, her name was Deborah Lee. She is a retired CW4 parachute rigger. I unfortunately do not remember that master sergeant's name, but he was incredibly kind. He was a 5th group Bubba. He had been in Vietnam. I'm talking to a Vietnam SF guy.
Oh, that's awesome.
From 5th group. Doesn't get any better than that. But I remember one of the phrases he told me, Jay, was, it's mental. Yeah. Being a Special Forces operator is a cerebral endeavor. You will be tough. You will be physically fit. But you got to be on your A game. It is a thinking man's game.
Mm-hmm.
So he goes, when you go to selection, don't overthink things, but think about what you're doing at each phase and keep your long-range goals in mind with that. And the last thing he told me is, have fun with it. He goes, you're in selection. It's going to suck no matter what. And, he really put that idea of a positive mental attitude. He goes, no matter what happens, positive mental attitude. I decided I wanted to go. There was a Special Forces recruiter in Heidelberg. And I went to Heidelberg, where I met one of my lifelong SF friends, a guy named Bubba Veronis. I don't know if you know, I think he would have been a first sergeant or sergeant major. His name was Bubba Veronis. We're still friends to this day. He was also trying out for SF. We did the PT test. We did some aptitude tests. And they said, okay, you guys passed the test. You did good. We'll send your packet in. And a couple of days later, I got a call from the recruiter. Hey, you got a selection date. You're going in September of 93.
Yeah.
And so I'd only been in Germany about a year, maybe a year and 2 months by the time I went to Heidelberg. And then I got a selection date.
Yeah. Now, leading up to that point, did you, like, physical, mental, like, how was that training process? Like,
yeah. Great question. Again, preparation is everything with everything you do. Like I prepared for, I've done lots of interviews, but I still prepared for your interview today.
Yeah.
If you and I said we were going to go do a recruiting thing at ROTC, I would prepare, right? That's what we do. We're professionals. We prepare, we rehearse, we research.
Correct.
So I prepared and I researched and I talked to everybody about it. I want to give a shout out to the command element at 5th Quartermaster and, in that they were very supportive. I've heard stories about people who were in infantry units or Ranger Battalion, and maybe the command wasn't supportive. Like, oh, you want to go to SF? Screw you. Can't believe you're doing this. You want to go be with those clowns? I had the exact opposite. Captain Rick Tokar was my company commander. He had been a former enlisted Ranger Regiment member. He had the scroll and everything. I don't know. I think he got a scroll from like Grenada. Yeah. He was like old school. He was an old captain. But he was like, awesome, you're going to SF. You're going to selection. Here's the things I think you need to do. I've never been, but here's what I would do.
That's awesome.
I read SF at the time had a prep little manual with like how much you should be rucking and how much these are the standards. 45 pounds this is how far you got to move, right? The whole DIRT formula, distance, rate, time. Got to understand that. I was 22 years old too. Let's not forget. So I was in good shape. I know you see this physical specimen before you now. Imagine me like 30 pounds lighter and just ripped. I was like a little wiry spider monkey. So I worked out. I went to the gym probably 3 times a week. I only rucked once or twice a week because I was pretty quick. I was better at ruck running than I was at walking. I couldn't walk to save my life. But if you let me run with a ruck, I can move out.
Yeah.
Mental preparedness. I talked to a psychologist at Launchstool, and she was like, you got to see yourself being successful. That's awesome. Imagine yourself through selection and all the phases being successful. That you will meet. She said, what do you need to be successful in selection? You need physical fitness, you need mental acuity and agility, and you need motivation. And she said the same thing. You need a positive attitude. Yeah. Because you're going to be dealing with some very tough things, and if those tough things could get you down, you're going to be physically hurt. You're going to be fatigued and tired. If you let those things get to you, you'll quit. Which is funny because that 5th group master sergeant, he said, selection's pretty easy, man. Just don't quit. I'm like, okay. He actually said that. He said, don't quit, have fun with it. Yeah. And it's all mental. You hear these stories over and over again, this guidance, and it starts to click. Like, okay, these people are all saying the same thing. So yeah, a lot of preparation. I will tell you, I probably worked out too hard. There were some nights in the gym, Jay, that I would finish at the gym, get in my car, and I could not hold on to my steering wheel. Yeah. Like I would start the car up and start driving and I'd be like, oh, forearms tightening up. Oh, God.
Now, what made you push your limit? Is it just the fear of not succeeding, or you just wanted to leave it all on the table and know that, hey, I did everything that I could to make sure that I was ready?
I think it was a little bit of both. I definitely think I overtrained. Because I remember I think from the time I got selected to go to selection, was in the summer of 93, and I didn't leave till September. So I think for like 90 or 120 days, I was just crushing it. Yeah. And I was already in great shape already. I mean, I was PT stud, always got 300s. I could run I ran a 10, 22 mile. I could
awesome.
run fast. Yeah. I could do 100 push-ups, 100 sit-ups. I could climb ropes. I mean, I was a physical specimen, just like a lot of us are.
Yeah.
When you're 22 years old and a paratrooper. But I didn't know, and I wanted to crush it. I wanted to be successful, and I was ready to leave the rigger field.
Yeah.
I had a brand new wife, I had a brand new baby, and I wanted to really get this thing done. And I was never afraid of failing, but I just wanted to make sure that I didn't just go and pass. I wanted to succeed. I wanted to be the best at selection.
Yeah. I guess you can always, like, me personally, I rather overtrain than undertrain.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Exactly. And I did now I would look back at what I did and say, you did too much. Relax. Because you shouldn't be. That's great that there were episodic times when I couldn't drive my car because my forearms were so smoked. I had T-Rex arms. But that's probably a little crazy.
Yeah.
Like, I would literally have to, like, go back in the gym, call my wife on the landline because we didn't have cell phones back then. I'd call my wife on the landline from the gym and be like, baby, I'm going to have to wait like another half hour.
I can't drive.
I can't drive. My arms are so smoked. And we only had one car. She's like, okay, just let me know. And I'd go out there and sometimes fall asleep and wake up at like, 9 o'clock at night and be like, I need to drive home now. So prep, that was prep. Positive mental attitude, definitely train. I would say in terms of like the physicality, and there's lots of resources out there, but you need to be able to carry things in your hands. I think selection is still the same way.
It is.
You got to be able to carry a lot of stuff in your hands.
Yeah.
Got to be able to ruck pretty quick, and you need to be balanced between speed and power. You need to be able to bench press your body weight plus probably 20 or 30% minimum, right? You need to be able to bench press because you're going to have to push logs.
Yeah.
You need to be able to climb a rope.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry, if you can't climb a 20-foot rope like 10 times with mainly arms, you might want to, because you got to do pull-ups, right? Is the Nasty Nick still there?
It is.
Am I dating myself? Nasty Nick is still there.
Yeah.
Obstacle courses, low crawling.
Yeah.
And keep your cardio up too, and then, the mental agility, like geography, basic biology, what are all the 50 states, basic math. Like it's a thinking man's game, right?
Yeah.
You got to have all those skills to be a Bravo, a Charlie, a Delta, or an Echo.
And I think it's very important that you bring up, because I never really thought about it until you said it, like going and actually sitting and speaking with a psych to mentally prepare.
Yeah.
Like, because when folks reach out to me, I was like, yeah, just go out and do hard shit. But actually sitting down with a professional and learning how to, I guess, project success, that's actually a good hack, right? Because I till now, I never really thought about it.
Yeah. No,
so,
what you said there about going out and doing hard shit is absolutely right. Mental toughness.
Yeah.
You do hard shit over and over. Like, I'm a triathlete now, and people say, well, how do you just, we were only supposed to run 9 miles. You ran 13 miles. Why did you do that? I'm like, I felt good, and I felt like doing it. And once you've done something really hard over and over again, the mental aspect of doing it is not daunting anymore.
No.
Now you just got to push this raggedy body for, come on, knees, let's go. We got to do 13 a day.
Yeah.
So I think it's very much a mental aptitude thing. And I saw like Johnny Glenn's ultra endurance runner. He says the same thing. It's like some days you just tell your mind to do it. You've got the mental toughness and you do it. Yeah. And I don't want to understate that or simplify it, but eventually you get. How many reps do you have of doing something hard that you didn't think you were going to have to do?
A lot, yeah.
Hundreds. Yeah. Hundreds of reps of getting up and doing something that you didn't think you were going to have to do that day, and you do it because you push through mentally. So it cannot be understated.
Yeah. So now you get to selection. When I went, it was broken down into three weeks. You had your admin week with all your physical tasks. Then you have Land Nav, and then you had team week. Was it similar for you? And how did selection go for you?
Yeah, it was. 3 phases. Selection was a weird animal because you're being assessed. Those cadre are always watching. They're always watching. They're always judging. I focused on doing a good job. I remember I'm 22. So I'm looking around. This is September of 1993. I'm in selection. I'm 22 years old. I'm still young. I come from a soft skill MOS, so I didn't have a lot of bad habits. I didn't know how to get over. You told me 45 pounds in the ruck, 45 pounds in the ruck. And then I didn't want to be light, so I'd do 50. Yeah. I'd say, your ruck's 50, you could take something out. I'm like, okay. That was me. I was like, I just didn't want to fail. And I had a great, was it Huts? I had a great Hut cadre or Hut squad, a great squad. I had a chaplain in my squad.
Oh, that's awesome.
There. He was going to one of the groups as a chaplain. This is why I love chaplains. He's like, if I'm going to be a chaplain for SF guys, I got to know what it's like. Yeah. I'm not going through the Q course, but I am going to go through selection.
That's awesome.
And he was like 40. I was like, so right? That was a blessing for me.
Yeah.
How lucky am I? If this 40-year-old can make it, my 22-year-old ass can do this.
Yeah.
So I just drew off of him, and
Yeah.
he made it. He was amazing. Selection was fine. You're tired. I remember two of the things that were the hardest for me in selection was maybe it's because you're young and you're not used to sleep deprivation. I definitely wasn't used to sleep deprivation. And I don't know how you train for sleep deprivation. I don't think you should.
I don't think you can.
I don't think you can. I don't think you should.
No.
For all those folks going to selection out there, do not sleep deprive yourself. Get 8 hours of sleep as much as possible. But this being tired, man, I remember waking up day after day going, I'm so freaking tired.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm motivated, but and then the second thing, my feet. When my feet hit the ground, it was like pins and needles. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you got that, but man, I was like,
Yeah. Just from pounding, constantly.
And every day it got worse, and I'm like, it's never gonna go away. It's just like I would prepare myself. I remember getting off the bunk, like, okay, let's do this. So fatigue and pain in the feet. But yeah, I was 22, so I can only imagine what the 30 and 40-year-old guys were feeling.
Yeah, but again, if that 40-year-old's doing it, you don't have an excuse, right?
Yeah, and you know what he probably had more of was mental toughness.
Yes.
Like to him, he probably didn't even feel like he probably brushed the fatigue right off. He's like, I need coffee, I'll be all right. Yeah. And I'm like, there's no amount of coffee that can take away this fatigue.
Now, what was the most challenging part for you at selection?
I would say academically, the hardest challenge for me was land nav. Mm-hmm. I didn't have I'll plot spoil right now and say I made it through selection, no problem. But I was afraid of land nav because I'd done a little bit. I had a great chain of command back in Germany. I'd done land nav. I felt strong in land nav, but you're at Bragg and there's pine needles everywhere and tall trees, and you've got to perform, and you're in a team. And when I looked left to right of me, it's like 7th Infantry Division, Ranger Regiment, 82nd. There was a ton of infantry guys and a ton of armor guys and a ton of, medics and other MOSs that had all artillery guys. These guys have been around. They know what they're doing. They had come from combat arms. There were a few combat service support guys, and you can kind of tell. I don't know if when you're in selection, you can kind of tell the combat service support guys because we're like this.
You want us to do what?
You want us to do what? We're going to rock march? Okay. You want to climb ropes? Yeah. Oh, you want me to lead a patrol? How do we do that? I don't know. Like, we're just very wide-eyed. Yeah. And we're very, optimistic and, ready for anything. And the guys who've been around, the infantry guys are like, okay, who's strong? They're looking for, teammates who are strong, and they're definitely coming up with a strategy. Yeah. I was just taking everything as it came. Yeah. And, I remember a guy going, hey, man, can you take my fire watch for me, man? I just, if I don't get some sleep tonight, I'm not gonna make it. And he's like, you're young, you're fit, you're doing great. And I was like, yeah, man, I'll take your fire watch for you. So I took 2 fire watches back to back because I took it as I could, this guy, and you're naive and you're idealistic, and I never asked for reciprocity, but that's I think the nature of being a very young guy going to selection, which can be a good thing, is you take everything as is. Yeah. It just kind of rolls off your back. Yeah.
And I tell guys the same thing now. I'm like, hey, as a young 18 X-ray, you have fitness going for you, right? But you don't have the experience and the leadership. Absolutely. So you have to understand that you need to help guys along the way, because once you get to that part where leadership is needed, now they'll repay you by helping you out.
Absolutely.
Right?
100%. Yeah, you strengths and weaknesses, right? Mm-hmm. You're not a strong leader. You don't have a lot of technical skill with patrolling or op orders. Then get it, find a job. Where's your job? You can be the comic relief. You can be the positive mental attitude guy. You can be like, I'll help you pack your ruck. Hey, I'm going out to get water. Can I grab water for somebody? Fill up your canteens. You find that niche where you are valuable, and that's where you hook in. And you gotta get rid of the ego. Yeah. You gotta get rid of the ego. How can I help the team? And that served me, just to jump forward, that served me throughout my career, is to not ever say, well, I'm a special forces guy, and so I'm entitled, and I shouldn't have to do this, or I'm not going to help because I've been doing this for X years. Yeah. I never let the words, I've been doing this forever, so I'm not going to, I've always done it this way. Yeah. I check my ego as much as possible.
Yeah. And that's important, man, because even when I was a team sergeant, I was down there with a junior Bravo. I was still, because I understand, I'm in this position, but he's still a man. He's still doing work, and I'm capable, then why not? Yeah. Right. Why not help out? So now you get through selection. How was that feeling? Well, for starters, how was team week? Let's knock that one out.
Team week is hard, right? Yeah. One of the hardest things I've ever done. And I think the captain that was running team week, or the captain that was in charge of selection, maybe. I want to say his name was Captain White. And he was a great guy, but he laid it down. I love it because he's like you. He came out and said, man, when it feels like we got 150 pounds on your back and we trying to break your spine, it's because we are. Like, he said it just like that. I was like, yes. Like, that's raw, right? Like, we're not, like, I don't know. Selection is probably morphed now. It's probably a little more technical. And I know we have, like, the Thor program and dietitians, and we're looking after our regiment better. Yeah. But back then, 1993, he's like, when it feels like we're trying to crush your spine, we're trying to crush your spine. Yeah. Because we want you to hurt so you'll quit. And if you don't quit, you got mental toughness.
Yep, that's what we're looking for. That's awesome.
It was a trial by fire. Yeah. That's what selection was. It was a gut check. We're going to punch you in the belly, and you're going to say, thank you, may I have another. Yeah. That's how we did it back then. Yeah. And I'm not saying it was right or wrong. It was the way it was, and it worked. It is a method to weed out people without the right type of mental attitude. Yeah. It's not
it's still like that.
It hurt. Yeah. It hurt, and I didn't like it, but I was like, okay, what can I do about it? I don't like carrying around this heavy ruck, and I don't like being abused. I don't like being hollered at. But what am I going to do? I asked to be here. I want to be part of this regiment. Mm-hmm. And if this is the gateway, I'm sure it gets better on the other side. I'm going to stick it out.
That's awesome. Yeah. And that's a good mindset to have, man, because especially with these, younger guys going through now, I call them young, but you are asking to be there, right? So
you did volunteer.
I'd
love to be here, please. Yeah.
So if you're gonna go there, prepare and perform, right? Absolutely. So I think that's awesome. And as far as I know, selection is still the same, with all the same events, the down pilots, and just the instructors have changed, right?
Absolutely, yeah. So and you're pushing carts, and the Jeep push. Mm-hmm. You've got the missiles, which are logs. Yeah. You've got the, I remember, the next event, you will move along a designated route marked by engineer tape. Do not deviate significantly left or right of the engineer tape. Mm-hmm. What are your questions? You're like, I got lots, but okay, let's do this. Go. And you're like, You're like, we're doing 3 miles, 7 miles. Yeah. I don't know if that still happens. Yep. If it is, great. If it's not, I'm saying, because I think that's great too. The unknown, it teaches you to deal with the fear of the unknown and make you more resilient and more confident. Like, I have no idea. You still don't know. You're like, man, I think that was, right? No watch. So you're like, I think that was about a 35-minute run. I don't know how far we went. Yeah. And they know your times. And the instructors would slowly let slip how you were doing, not holistically, but I remember getting asked a few times on a few events, like roster number 137. That was my number, 137. Where you from? And I'm like, I'm from Germany, Sergeant. Like, what unit? 5th Quartermaster. They're like, what do you do? I'm like, I'm a rigger. And they're like, you're a soft skill MOS guy? I'm like, roger that. And they're like, get out of here. Like, okay. Like, you're doing, like, I could tell they were like, wow, you were the first guy on the 10K or whatever. Like, you will be first or close to the lead on some events, and you'll feel good about that. In other events, you'll, like, come up out of the mud, like, where am I? What happened? And they're like, you're last. Yeah. Keep moving. So, selection went really well. I was super happy. I'll say one thing to wrap up selection is, at the end of selection, I don't know if they still go in a big room, a conference room, and they start reading off names or numbers.
They do, yeah.
I think it's names maybe, or maybe it's roster numbers. But you don't know if you're going outside because you got selected or you're staying inside because you got selected. But they keep calling numbers.
Yeah, it was numbers.
And I'm like, they didn't select me. Like, I'm thinking the guys who got selected went outside and they're getting on a party bus with dancing girls and booze, and I'm like, this is the room, so when they let you down, you can't, like, commit suicide. And then, man, I don't know. Again, I don't know if they still do this, but then when they finally call off the last number, and the guy, the NCO at the front says, gentlemen, welcome to Special Forces. Man.
The room lights up.
It still gives me goosebumps. You're like, yes, I made it. Like, and you're like so happy, and you're like, and then you can feel the mental doors open. You're like, what is my career going to be like? I am going to go to the Q course. And then, but that's the next horizon, right? And then you're like, okay, it lasts, the euphoria lasts for a few hours and days, and you go home, you tell your family and friends, and you tell your wife, and your fellow unit members are happy for you, and you're like, but then you're like, the Q course.
Yeah, like, now it really starts.
Still fuck this up. That's what I was thinking, like, great. Which is a good attitude to have, right? Yeah. Like, don't rest on your laurels. Great, you made it through selection. Now what?
Yeah.
So.
That's awesome, man. So now you get, before we move on to the Q course, do you have any advice for anybody right now currently getting ready to go to selection?
Absolutely. Yeah. seek out advice like this channel. Watch more Green Beret Chronicles, because there's a lot of great guys on here besides me that have already given you great advice. So if you're watching this video now, go back and watch the other videos. Johnny Glenn, I think Mike was on
Mike
here.
Clark, yeah.
Watch a lot of other of your content is great, but there's tons of special forces selection content out there, and there's tons of resources. If you're in the Army and you have an NCO, you should seek that NCO out, and he should help you. But do your own research. And then the other thing is just prepare yourself mentally, prepare yourself emotionally, prepare yourself physically. See yourself being successful. Be kind to yourself. Don't Jay and I talked about overtraining. Don't overtrain. Have some recovery days. Stay hydrated. Electrolytes. Stretch. God, I don't think I stretched once when I was getting ready for selection.
I didn't either.
Because I wasn't raised to stretch. Stretching was for wimps. Like, you reach down, touch your toes. Okay, we get it. Just some back bends. All right, let's move out. But stretch. Please stretch. Do yoga. Take care of yourself, because selection's tough. And now we know we want an NSF soldier for life, right? We want you to do a 20, 25, 30-year career. So be kind to yourself while you're preparing. But definitely push yourself beyond your limits at least once every 3 or 4 events. I like the gut check. For me, I love a gut check. Try to find a partner. I had a great partner when I was working out, and what he would do to me, he wasn't going to selection, but what he would do is surprise gut checks. We do an incredibly arduous workout, and he'd be like, we're going to do 100 push-ups, 100 sit-ups as fast as we can. And I can't move my arms. I'm like, I got flappy arms. I'm like, what? He goes, 100 push-ups, 100 sit-ups right now. And I'm like, oh my goodness, okay, let's do it. And it would take us 20 minutes to do 100 push-ups. But we do it.
That's awesome.
And I was like, that was a good gut check, because I didn't think I could do that. When you said 100 push-ups, I was like, there's no way I'm doing 100 push-ups.
And then you do it,
and it's like a massive 2-hour chest day. And I'm shaking, and I'm like, so a gut check every now and then. So if you can get a workout partner, have them give you those arduous gut checks that help push you past where you think you can be. That's always good, right? And
that's awesome.
So yeah.
All right. So now going into the Q course itself, what language did you get and what MOS?
I got Thai language.
Nice.
And I got the 18 Echo MOS.
Nice. Now, did you choose those, or were they kind of just like?
I did choose those. I wanted to be a Bravo. I wanted to be a Bravo because I thought, coming from a soft skill MOS, I just thought being a Bravo was great. Weapons, mortars. Still love mortars. But I guess I did too well on the aptitude test at selection. You do the Morse code test. And I guess I did well enough, and my GT score was high enough. This is what the first sergeant said at the 18 Echo committee. He's like, your aptitude scores were high enough to get into the 18 Echo. So I said, okay, cool. So I got Thai and 18 Echo, which I was fine with.
I gotcha.
Thought it was really interesting.
Gotcha. Now, so how was the Q course for you? Any challenges there, or did you breeze right through it?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's yes, there were challenges. I had to go through AMIC back in the day, which was the Advanced International Morse Code course. You do that right up front. So that if you don't pass Morse code, you're not.
It's like
you're not
6 months, ain't it? Yeah.
No, it's only a month. I think it's only a month. Yeah, it's only a month.
Gotcha.
But it's tough. It's very exacting standards, and the 18 Echo cadre that run AMIC are incredibly professional. But there are standards. You must get to the minimum. I believe back then was 13 words sending per minute and 13 words receiving, which is no easy task. If you ever listen to 1313 on, you can go to YouTube and type in 1313 Morse code. It's like it's moving out, and those are all letters, and it doesn't stop. So if you miss one, you have to keep going. You'll never catch up. So Morse code was interesting. I enjoyed it. But it was. I think the easy formula for being successful in something like that, like if someone says you have 1 month to learn Arabic, is total dedication. That you eat, breathe, and sleep that language, which is what they do for AMIC. You don't do anything else, which is great. You do PT in the morning, you get smoked. Kelly Franson was the TAC, and he was a first group guy, and he could run like nobody's business. The other guy was a guy named, so you had Kelly Francis, and then the other guy was a third group or a seventh group bub. I don't remember his name. I apologize. I will find your name and I will give you a shout out later, but I'll be in the comments. But those two, there was one guy that was really beefy, and he was a diver, And then Kelly Franson, I think, had come from a free fall team, and he was a triathlete.
Oh, wow.
And that's where I really got the first triathlete bug. But those guys would PT the crap out of us in the morning, and then we would go to Morse code class all freaking day. All day. 6 hours, 7 hours of Morse code.
That's awesome.
And so I think that dedicating yourself to that for that month is the way to do. I lived in the barracks. My wife and kid didn't come with me. They stayed in Texas with my parents. And so I was able to focus every day 100% on AMIC.
That's awesome.
And I think that's what, I will tell you some quick statistics.
Sure.
There was a class of, I think, 20 or 30 of us in that AMIC class. There was only me and another guy named Chris Schwartz that made it through that class. And it was our first time going through. Everyone else in our class was their second time going through. And the rest of the newbies, there were like 8 newbies, failed.
Wow.
It had a very high failure rate.
Yeah.
Now, they let you go through twice. So you fail AMIC the first time, cool. You recycle to the next class. I think if you don't make it through the second time, you're not going to be an echo.
Yeah.
So most of the people in my AMIC class were from the previous class.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So you got a lot of pressure.
I remember because Mike Clark, if I remember correctly, he said he went through, fell, recycled, and then he went through pass, and then they got rid of Morse code. Like I think it was the next class.
that tracks. That tracks, right? For the Army, we're done with it. Good job, but we're done. Yeah, thanks for all your hard work.
So now you go through the Q course.
Yeah.
Did you choose first? Well, I guess it's based on language.
It's based on language. Yeah, you do have. I had a cheat sheet, and I remember putting down. I think first group was not my first choice.
Yeah.
I think my first choice was 10th group.
Okay.
My second choice was first group. I wanted to go overseas.
Yeah.
I knew that there was 110 and there was 1-1. And then I put down 7th group.
Gotcha.
And then I put down 3rd.
Gotcha.
And 5th group, I think, was my last.
Gotcha.
Yeah. The reason I put down 3rd group is because I heard they had been in Mogadishu. Because if you remember from our previous conversation, in September of 93, I'm in the Q selection.
Yeah.
And Gothic Serpent went down. So
Gotcha.
as we were finishing up selection, they would come out and tell us, look, some of you guys might be going to war, because we thought Mogadishu was going to turn into a war.
Yeah.
But they're like a lot of Rangers and a lot of SF guys and Delta guys were hurt in an operation in Mogadishu in October of 93.
And that was going on while you were at selection?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
October 3rd and 4th. I started in September, and I think I graduated 10 October.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was awesome. But yeah, MOS was 18 Echo. They tell you, they're like, Lake, Thai, first group. They don't really have to say first group because there's no Thai speakers in 7th group.
Yeah.
But I think if you get French or Arabic, maybe you could be in 3rd or 5th. So I was like, okay, I guess I'm going to Fort Lewis.
Yeah.
And
so how was that?
Man, so Thai language school was fun, difficult. It's a Cat 4 language. Great instructors. I still remember my instructors, Kunkru Tanati and Jodoporn. Great instructors. Had grade 18 series guys in my class. A former enlisted guy who turned out to be a captain, or went to OCS, Captain Guy Lemire, Fred Dumar, just some great officers, great NCOs. Language school was 6 months of learning Thai. Yeah. Going to Thai restaurants, watching Thai movies.
That's awesome.
You still got to keep up the standards, still doing PT, still looking at the next horizon. Guys from, I really like this, and I hope they still do this, guys from first group came down to Fort Bragg or were there for other courses. They came by language school. Hey, you're about to go to group. This is what 1st Battalion's doing. This is what 2nd Battalion's doing. This is what 3rd Battalion's doing. We only had 3 battalions back then. That was great. I hope they still do that in language school. They have guys who are at Bragg teaching or there for other courses come and talk to the new guys. Yeah. It was helpful for me to put in perspective, what's it going to be like, So that was really helpful. And I enjoyed language school, no problem. And before I knew it was time to PCS out to Fort Lewis.
So now you show up to Fort Lewis as a new guy. Did you know what to expect at this point, or was it still walking into the unknown of, I'm a group now, when am I going to get to start doing all this cool stuff? So how was that for you?
I love that. And I want to segue into what you said about when you first show up to a group, don't expect to go straight to a certain team or whatever. Just take what you get. Yeah, that's what I got told too. So let's keep that going. Yeah. If you are a young Special Forces guy, a young person thinking about going to Special Operations, just take what you get. Do not come in demanding. You are in no position to demand anything. It's going to set you up with a bad reputation of being a prima donna. Don't do it. That's what SEALs do. Anyway, sorry, I love my SEALs. I love my SEALs. I do. But yeah, I showed up to Charlie Company, 3rd Battalion. And that's what my order said. When I got to group, I got like an intergroup set of orders, and it said 3rd Battalion, 1st Group. Now I'm an Echo, and everything I had been told was, you're going to the BOP. You're going to the BOP. You're a young 18 Echo. You need to learn how a group does communications. I was okay with that. Let me learn the big picture. And my order said 3rd Battalion. I'm like, am I going to the battalion? Like, am I working battalion? Maybe I'm going to work in the battalion staff. Maybe I'm going to be like a gopher or something. I don't know. Take what you get. I go down to 3rd Battalion. 3rd Battalion CSM is there. He goes, okay, I need you to go over and see Charlie Company. And I'm like, okay. I think this means I'm going to a team. I didn't say that to him because he's a battalion sergeant major, right? Yeah. And his S1 was in the office with him, and he's like, yeah, you're going to Charlie Company. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to a team. But I didn't say that. I didn't want to jinx it. I was like, roger that, sergeant major. Grab my orders, move the fuck out. Went to Charlie Company. Gary Konitzer, who was the SFA president for a while.
Yeah.
Sergeant Major Konitzer is in the company area. I come in, I give my orders, parade rest. I was staff sergeant by now. I got promoted. Staff Sergeant Lake reporting as ordered. He goes, relax, Lake. He goes, you're a parachute rigger? I'm like, roger that. I am a parachute rigger. He goes, you know how to pack free fall parachutes? I'm like, roger that, Sergeant Major. He goes, all right, go down to 9-4, see Mike Woods. And I was like, 9-4? That's a Halo team. I'm like, this cannot be right. So I walk down the hallway, and I walk in, and there's a tall, lanky master sergeant sitting at his desk. And he's like, come on in. And I come in, and he shuts the door, and he goes, have a seat. And he starts talking to me, and he's like, you're a parachute rigger? I'm like, roger that, Master Sergeant. I was a parachute rigger. I still know how to pack parachutes. He goes, you know how to pack free fall rigs? I'm like, roger that, Master Sergeant. He goes, you ever been to Ranger School? I'm like, negative, Master Sergeant. He goes, you okay with going to Ranger School? I'm like, I would love to go to Ranger School. I said, Master Sergeant, I once tried to go to Ranger. He said, shut up. He just stopped me right there. He goes, good. He goes, before you go to free fall school, you're going to go to Ranger School. He goes, and he said what you said. This is a very senior team. I ain't got time to babysit nobody. I need to know you're solid. You need to go. Everyone on this team is Ranger qualified. Some of these people have served in Ranger Regiment. You're going to go to Ranger School. If you pass Ranger School, we'll send you to free fall school, and you can stay on this team. So I went to Ranger School 3 months later.
Nice.
And it was a great experience, and we'll talk about that later. But the team was great. ODA 194. Give a shout out to 194. Mike Woods, Bernie Fernandez, Mark Villacruz, Chris Heim, rest in peace. He was our medic. Rob Easter. Just a great team.
That's awesome.
I love my team. And that was my first team. You never forget your first team.
Oh no, not at all.
Yeah. It was a free fall team. Great bunch of guys. And
what year was this?
This was 1995.
1995.
Yeah.
Nice.
1995. Because even though I went to selection in 93, I had a contract, if you remember, for Europe. So I had to fulfill the contract. They were like, my chain of command let me go to selection, but Big Army was like, you signed a re-enlistment bonus. You got a bonus to come to Germany.
Oh, so you didn't go to the Q course right away?
No, I graduated September, October of 93. I didn't go to the Q course till 95.
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So how did you stay focused throughout that entire time? You could easily deviate and...
Yeah. No, again, it's so important for all those commanders out there that have soldiers that are going to go to SF. When your soldier comes to you, they're relying on you for support.
Yeah.
And they're going to go to Special Forces regardless. So you can set them up for success. And I'm sure 99.5% of commanders and first sergeants and platoon sergeants in the regular Army support their troops when they do this. But for those that don't support your guys, you're setting them up for failure. I had a very supportive chain of command. My first sergeant, my company commander said, you're going to go work with a LURS unit. There's a LURS unit right down the road in Darmstadt. Echo 51st. What's up, guys? Echo 51st. I went down to a LURS unit, and for that year, all I did was LURS stuff. LURPs, long-range patrols, op orders, patrol bases. I did all the infantry stuff you can do. It still wasn't enough. I mean, I would have loved to have more, but that year, that's what I did.
That's awesome, man, because that got you in that mindset.
Yeah, it served me well because as a soft skill MOS guy, you're going to hit the ground running in the Q course, right? Small unit tactics phase. Man, and again, I had great NCOs from 7th ID and 10th Mountain and all these other units that had patrolling skills, and they were like, you tell them, you're full kimono. I don't know what I'm doing. I only have academics. I've never led a patrol, an actual squad of soldiers in the field in a real operation. You guys have. I've done it with LURS, but I would love for you to teach me, mentor me, give me your little, those little tips and tricks. Setting guys in an ambush line. There's tips and tricks in setting guys in an ambush line. There's tips and tricks to doing an area recon. How you cross a road, scroll the road and all that good stuff. But there's little tricks to it. How you can do it efficiently. And you'd be sorely missing if you did not, take advantage of all those infantry NCOs experience. So, great experience.
Yeah. So now you got to your first team, Ranger School, free fall.
Yeah.
How was your stay at group? You also had the chance to go to SCUBA. How did you manage your career to not only retire but also progress throughout the ranks? Like, what advice would you give guys on that front?
The advice I would give folks going to Special Forces, guys going to Special Forces, is be open to new experiences. Don't keyhole yourself into one thing. If you love long range shooting, you want to be a sniper, great. But don't try not to be a sniper your whole career, unless that is all you want to ever do. And that's, I guess, the biggest thing I would tell you is do what makes you happy. And I know that sounds canned and easy, but don't worry about your career. Do what makes you happy. And then when you get put in a leadership position, take care of your people. Be that servant leader, right? Your job should get harder as you gain rank, not easier. So you should do more and more work for your guys. Put them in leadership roles. Right. I always had team sergeant for a week. When I became a team sergeant, I was like, I know how hard it is to be a team sergeant, and I don't want your first time as a team sergeant to be the first time. So you're going to be the team sergeant for the week. You're going to make all the administrative decisions.
Awesome. Yeah.
You're going to make all of the operational decisions. I'll be there for you, but you use your judgment, and I'll be there to guide you, set you up for success instead of let you fail and then say this is what you should have done. I'll just keep you out of the failure points altogether. It's good to fail, but and you can learn from failure, of course, but why you should learn from my lessons. I have screwed this up before. Let me tell you why I screwed it up. Don't do that.
I like that concept, team sergeant for a week. That's my first time hearing that.
Yeah.
So whenever that senior fox or that senior whoever is in the seat,
I put junior guys in there.
It's not their first time.
Yeah, I would put junior guys. The junior guys being in the team sergeant position came because they were sniping from cover, and by that I mean they're like, "What about this decision for the team sergeant? Didn't you screw this up, team sergeant?" I'm like, okay, you second guessing me. I got that. That's cool. I'm a big boy. I can take it. I can take constructive feedback. Here's why I made those decisions.
Yeah.
I didn't make them in a vacuum, but I made them with as much information as I can. And it's 80% solution. They will tell you when I went to ANOC and ONI, you did a study that said this is what type of leader you are. And that study told me that I was more of a pontificator. I like to think. And the problem with that is we already have one of those on the team. That's called the captain. Yeah. He's a thinker. He's the guy that's going to worry about every little detail and come up with the perfect plan. It's going to take him 6 months. Team sergeant needs to be able to react. Yeah. And I could still do that, but I did like to plan and I did like to pontificate. So I got out of that. And that means you're not going to make 100% perfect decisions every time. You're going to make the best decision given the environmental conditions and the intelligence you have. But guys will still snipe at you. They'll make little quips like, "Oh, okay, what's up?"
And they wouldn't be a SF guy.
Wouldn't be a SF guy, right?
Yeah.
You want that.
Yeah.
Right? But that's also a leadership challenge and an opportunity. So, young 18 Bravo, young 18 Charlie, you're going to be team sergeant for a week as well. And it's not a choice. You have to do it. But I'll be there to support you. And you give them episodic. You know the deal. You were a team sergeant. You give them episodic leadership challenges as well. But being the team sergeant, you come up with the PT plan for the week. You come up with and it's not surprise. You're the team sergeant. It's like, you're going to be the team sergeant of the week for this week. And then you skip a couple of weeks and then you give another guy an opportunity. And you tell them, you give them plenty of ample opportunity. You're going to be the team sergeant for the week. You should come up with a plan for this week in October. That's your week. This is what we need to get done. But how we execute it, up to you.
That's awesome.
What time we come into work, who does what, resources. You're going to go meet the company sergeant major. You're going to go to the staff meetings. And they're like, "Oh, being a team sergeant, it's a lot of work." Yeah,
it is.
Oh, hey, you're not going home high speed. We got a team sergeant meeting. Yeah, and you're a team sergeant for the week. You're coming with me. Yeah. So it puts a lot of good perspective, and I think it gives the younger soldiers an opportunity.
I think it's an awesome concept, man, and I think a lot of civilian organizations could benefit from that. Yeah, because it's like when guys are thrown into the fire last minute because whoever was in charge, something happens to him.
Yeah.
And now you put that guy up there expecting him to crush it, but you've never really tested him and give him the opportunity to see what he's made of, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So
absolutely. Yeah, it definitely sets guys up for success. And look, it does what we should do in SF, which is replace ourselves. Mm-hmm. Right? We are a force multiplier.
Yeah.
We shape strategic initiatives with a very small force.
Yeah.
So, I mean, OSS World War II, 2 people behind enemy lines, raise a company.
Yep.
You know, I anytime I could do that when I was in Afghanistan or Iraq or the Philippines, I would do that. You too are going to go take care of these 150 locals.
I think commandos gave you the perfect opportunity to do that in Afghanistan.
Right? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Commandos. Yeah, that's the great thing about SF is we are exponentially bigger than you think. You're not just dealing with our team. You're dealing with the initiative we create. You're dealing with the partisans we raise. You know, like OSS in World War II.
Yeah, that's a perfect example.
Yeah.
Now, I know when I spoke to Johnny, he remembered vividly where he was doing 9/11. Do you remember where you and your team was at that point and how that developed for you guys?
Yeah, great question and great segue. 9/11, forms very formative in everyone's mind in America, and it's one of those things that we all share. Everybody was somewhere on 9/11, unless you weren't born, right? But if you were alive during 9/11, we all remember where we were. I was in Australia. I had been selected by USASOC to be the exchange LNO NCO with the Australian SAS. So I was in Perth, Western Australia. Think about San Diego. It's basically in the same geographic spot as San Diego in America is on the Australian continent, far west, down south. Beautiful area. The weather similarities and the temperature similarities with San Diego are pretty crazy. I was with the SAS. I was in a squadron, and we're 12 hours ahead of East Coast, so it's 9 o'clock at night. I'm sick as a dog for some reason, and I had just gotten to country. I had arrived in Australia on August 13th, 2001. Now it's September 11th. I'm sick as a dog, and it's 9 o'clock at night. I'm about to go to bed, and my wife at the time says, "Hey, you should come in here. Something happened. An airplane hit the World Trade Center." Now I go, wow, that's interesting. And I look out and I see the scene, and there's some smoke coming off from one of the towers. And I'm like, oh, man, that's too bad. It's probably a Cessna or something, some guy. But it's a clear day. And I'm like, huh. I said, I did hear about a World War II aircraft hitting the Empire State Building or something like that way back in World War II because it was fog.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's probably what happened. But then I'm like, wait a minute, it's a clear day. That's crazy that would have happened. But I'm like, whatever. It's too bad. I hope everyone's okay, but it happens. Airplanes run into stuff sometimes. They run into the ground.
Yeah.
So I go back in my room. I'm still sick, and 10, 15 minutes later, she's like, "Oh my God, another plane just!" And they showed it, and I'm like, "What is going on?" I come out and I look at the TV, and they show, because I think at that point now cameras are trained on the World Trade Center, and so they show that airliner going in, and I'm like, "That's not an accident. There's no way. Why would that aircraft hit that building like that?" And then, of course, a few minutes later, there's talk about the Pentagon. And, I mean, now it's like 11 p.m. Yeah. And I call the staff duty up at the squadron. And I'm like, hey, you guys tracking this? Like, Roger, we're tracking that. And they were so nice. They were like, do you have anybody in New York that you know? And I'm like, I don't think so. I don't know anyone in New York right now that I know of. I'm sure maybe I have a friend or something up there, but I don't know. But I'm like, what's happening? Do we know? Are other places in the world being hit? And they were like, we don't have any other intel. And it was just surreal. I was like, oh my God, what is happening? And it was the next morning that I went in, and they said, it was Al-Qaeda. And there was some reports about Afghanistan, and it was just crazy.
Yeah.
And I didn't know what was going to happen because I had been in country I've been in Australia less than a month.
Yeah.
And I was like, does this mean I'm going back? We just got here, and like, who did this? And there's a lot of questions. A lot of the same questions I'm sure everybody had.
Oh, yeah.
It was
definitely.
It was surreal, and I was in shock like everybody else. Like, I can't believe this happened. I was pissed.
Yeah.
Pissed.
I think everyone was. Because that would, I guess, go forward and set up the next 20 years of our careers.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So now, at this point, how long have you been in? And in what capacity were you serving?
I had been in about 11 years. Is that right? I came in 89. It's 2001. So 10 years, 10 and a half. Maybe.
Yeah.
I was an E7. And I was with the SAS, and
Yeah.
I was, you know, I was at a very good point in my career. I knew I was a careerist. I had re-enlisted in DEF already. I was in Australia. I had my family. I had 2 girls now, 2 kids, and I was in a good place. I felt like I was at that point. I was still peaking. I was at the peak of my tactical and technical prowess as a soldier.
Yeah.
I knew my job. I knew how to be a good 18 Echo. I knew how to be a good 18 Fox. I was an 18 Fox already. And I was ready to take on the world. And that's why I was there. I was a scuba guy. I was a free fall guy.
Nice.
I was ready to, make it happen. And when this happened, I was hoping that we would have some kind of response. And I wasn't really like, I think we're going to go, because we didn't get the word that we were going to go till much later, till October, November.
Gotcha.
Get the word, but we started preparing right away.
Yeah.
And so that felt good. Just the preparing felt good. Like we're doing something.
Yeah.
I had this fear that, oh my goodness, I'm not even in America right now. I'm way over here in Australia. I'm going to get completely left out of whatever's going to happen. And
So now fast forward, I'm sure you got a chance to deploy and did all that good stuff.
Yeah.
We'll talk about trauma real quick, because again, 20 years of war, like we've seen a lot of it. And again, it's something that plagues our community. When it comes to dealing with trauma, what advice would you give some of the guys that are either gone through it or that's about to go through it, as far as war? Like, how did you deal with some of the stuff that you saw doing, 20 plus years of fighting in Afghanistan and Iraq?
No, it's, that's an important question.
Yeah.
And it does affect our community along with a bunch of other communities, but the SOF community in general, the SF regiment in particular, suffers from suicides and traumas. The trauma that you face in SF is from combat. It's from the loss of brothers. It's from stress. It's from relationship, degradation and the things that happen. You miss out on kids' birthdays and the individual stress you feel. That trauma over time does take its toll. I think the way to deal with it, we're taught to deal with it by ignoring it, right, initially, because it's like we don't have time to worry about this person who died. We'll have a ceremony. Maybe I remember in Afghanistan we'd have ceremonies and say goodbye to our brothers when they were killed, but you don't have a lot of time to really process it. And you got to be careful about that, because that grief can turn into unprofessionalism, right? You get out on the battlefield, you start doing unprofessional shit. But the way I dealt with the trauma was to talk about it with other guys on the team and to remind them that we do need to stay focused on the mission, and that person who had died would want us to continue to be professional and to continue the mission. Yeah. And then we need to stay focused on that. Now, the grieving process has to happen, and I don't think the Army in particular, and SF specifically, ever had a great job of teaching you how to deal with the grief later. Like we always said, we're going to deal with it later. We'll have a ceremony when we get back to Lewis. We'll have a ceremony when we get back to Okinawa. We'll have a beer for Nate later. It's always pushing that ball down the road. And I think everyone was comfortable with that, because we were uncomfortable with dealing with it. You would have initial stark reactions, right? You'd be pissed. There would be crying. There would be sadness and anger. And questioning the decisions we made that day, and did we have to do that? And retribution. You're like, we're gonna go out next time. We're gonna show these. We're gonna show them what's up. We're gonna go in heavy, come out light. Yeah. Right. That was 325's motto. Yeah. Scalise, Sergeant Scalise.
Rod Scalise.
Scalise. That was his motto, man. 325, go in heavy, come out light. Yeah. He lost a lot of good. 325 lost a lot of good dudes, but it's difficult dealing with trauma. Years later, now I learned how to deal with it. And I deal with it through talking with other veterans. I deal with it through actually talking about my emotions and understand that it's okay to have those emotions, to be sad, to be happy, to remember those other soldiers that and then also to grieve yourself too, right? Like the time that you were unkind to yourself, the time that you were unkind to family members. It's okay to acknowledge that, be sad about it, and then to tell yourself, the way I'm going to be better and get over it is to not repeat those mistakes of the past. And to also put the trauma and to put the sadness and the emotion in context. That first of all, everything you're feeling is okay. A quick story: when we finally got to Afghanistan. We were up in, we're during Tora Bora and Anaconda. Mm-hmm. We had a lot of guys on the ground maneuvering around, and we had young guys with us, right, from Ranger Regiment. We had young guys with us from 10th Mountain, young guys with us from 82nd, 101st, and they're young. Like I'm 31. Mm-hmm. These guys are 17, 18, 19 years old. I can't imagine what that must be like, and to be fairly untrained. I mean, you went to infantry school, you might have gone to jump school, you had a great platoon sergeant, but you're 19, you're 20. Your frame of reference for the world is burgers, girls, muscle cars, Coca-Cola, your M4, your backpack, your rucksack, your cot, your platoon sergeant, your mom, your dad. They don't have kids.
Yeah.
They probably haven't, their parents are probably still alive. They don't have a lot of trauma. Mm-hmm. And your mind is just not equipped as well, I think, when you're younger to deal with that kind of like combat, like direct fire combat, bullets coming in, watching people get shot up. But as an SF guy, you're like, okay, how can we do better next time?
Yeah.
That's what you talk about in the AAR.
Yeah.
And these kids are like, I don't want to do that again. That was scary. That's the scariest thing I've ever done. I can't believe I survived. And so to first of all recognize that trauma comes in all shapes and sizes, and I don't judge that trauma or their response to it. But my point to that is I was feeling the same thing those 17-year-olds were feeling. Mm-hmm. Those 18-year-olds were feeling. He had 31. I was afraid. I was worried that I was going to let my buddies down. Mm-hmm. You're worried every time you go out.
Yeah.
You should have a little bit of fear and respect for your profession as a combatant.
I agree.
Because you can lose your life in a heartbeat. Mm-hmm. And so I think that's a healthy fear to have. And again, over time it leads to trauma, putting that trauma into context and forgiving yourself and having some kind of outlet and understand it's good. The last thing I'll say about it is a lot of our guys didn't make it.
Yeah.
And even if they made it afterwards, they then didn't make it later because the emotion, life took over, suicide. If you gave them a chance to roll the clock back and do things differently, I have to imagine that a high percentage of those soldiers, those professionals, those Green Berets would do it over again, and they would not commit suicide, or they would spend more time with their families. If they were killed in the line of duty in combat, they would spend more time with their families. They would tell people they loved them more. So I take their loss, our loss of them, as an opportunity to live my life better.
Yeah.
Right. And I always say that when I'm on a show or I'm talking to somebody about my experience, I say I'm lucky to be here, and I'm here on the shoulders of those giants. I'm here on the shoulders of guys who are still alive, like Colonel Paris Davis, and many other Medal of Honor winners, African Americans who led the way, other soldiers who led the way. Those guys can't be here.
Yeah.
And if they could be here, they would. And we owe it to them to live a good life, to be good people, be mentors, be leaders.
Yeah. And I think it's important that we're able to sit here and talk about this, because that's something that a lot of the guys that are struggling right now, like, for some reason, I get it, right? Because we were there once, we're told or we're thought that we can't share that emotion. We can't. We're not supposed to talk about that trauma.
Yeah.
Right. When in reality, that's how you heal from it. Is by talking and by sharing.
No, absolutely. Yeah. We don't necessarily want to talk about the trauma that happened in our lives, and when we're in combat, because we feel like we're going to be weak, or we're going to be judged, and boys don't cry and all this other stuff. But I mean, I knew Nate Chapman. He was a good friend of mine. And sorry.
No, you're good, man.
It's always happening what I talk about.
It's all right.
But Nate Chapman was a good friend of mine. And I remember I was preparing to go to combat when he was killed in January of 2002. And I remember my wife at the SAM say, "Oh my God, Nate Chapman just got killed." Like, it was on the news, and she's like, first American casualty, first Green Beret kill, first American casualty. And I'm standing in the living room with my wife, and it's like, she's like, she's about to say goodbye to me, and I'm about to go to combat. What that must do to her, like, Nate was a guy just like you. He was Ranger Regiment, great operator, SCUBA guy, 18 Echo. That's you. He's literally the same. You're the same people. Mm-hmm. We knew Nate. We knew his family. He's from San Antonio. I'm from Austin. Mm-hmm. And it just puts it all in perspective. And it's, I try to live my life like I think Nate would live his life if he was still alive.
Yeah.
I think that's important. Yeah. And I think that's the legacy that we can all leave behind for all of our guys is live your life as true, as honest, and, be respectful for them.
Yeah, yeah.
When you're out there doing your job, you're doing something. You're being a mentor. You're doing your professional job. You're helping someone out. You're with your family. Live your life as true as you can, because some of these guys didn't get a chance to. They gave the ultimate sacrifice, and we're lucky enough to still be here.
Yeah.
Because we all learn lessons too. Nate's death taught us some lessons about dealing with the tribes.
Yeah.
Not to turn your back on them and things like that, and be situation aware in small teams. He was one of the first guys in a very austere, remote environment. And so his death taught us something, and we need to honor that. And a lot of other guys, Lane and Dyer and all these other guys, that were killed, Griffin, Obadiah, Kolath, and the list goes on and on.
Yeah.
Every guy that dies, we learn a lesson. We break it down. How did he get shot? How did he get killed? IEDs. And you make their life mean something so they didn't die in vain, right?
Yeah.
And the regiment continues on, man. And that's what it does. I mean, we all know that that's what we're signing up for. And it makes you proud to have known those guys and gals. Some great, female operators out there. I think that's the number one legacy they left with me, is the pride to have called them friends and to know that I get to carry their legacy on, even if they can't be here. So
and I think that's an important message, especially for the guys that are struggling. Whether it's survivor's remorse, just understand like that guy would want you to carry on with your life and celebrate them because they're not around. Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think I hope that can give people some comfort who are struggling. They're like, I don't see a way out. I don't see an end. I think I want to end it. Just think about those people who gave the ultimate sacrifice in a positive light. You're here. You remember them. And in remembering, it keeps them alive. And if you take your own life, that there's no chance. It dwindles. Every time somebody takes their life, it dwindles the memory of the guys who died in combat.
So now we'll venture towards the beyond the beret aspect of it. So now, did you do 20 years or did you go past 20?
Man, I did as little time to get that pension. No, I'm just kidding. I did 20. I was like, when do I get my pension?
Yeah.
No, I did 20 years, 14 days, man.
Okay.
I joined June 14th, 1989, the Army's birthday. I like to say the day I joined the Army is the day the Army began. It's technically true. And then I retired. They don't let you retire in the middle of the month, as you know. So I retired on June 30th, 2009. Exactly 20 years, 14 days. I love the Army. I loved it. I loved SF. Loved it. Still do. I'm a big fan. I'm an advocate for the U.S. Army and Special Forces. I love it. And all of its flaws and pros. But I wanted to try something else. I had been in the Army since I was 17, literally. Yeah. And I wanted to try something else. Nothing against the Army. I do have regrets, though, because I wanted to be a sergeant major, but I just didn't want to be in the Army anymore. I wanted to get out and try something new. Yeah. I loved it. I would have loved to have continued on, but I realized that I needed to step away for my own good and for my kids, too. Yeah. My oldest was in high school. And if I had stayed in, I would have been selected for sergeant major, and I would have had to go to Fort Bliss in El Paso, and I didn't want to do that to my daughter because she was really enjoying high school. So I said, you know what? It's enough about me. Yeah, I'm going to retire now. That was good enough. And I did the old Seinfeld thing. I left on top. I was at the top of my game. I hadn't messed up too bad. Yeah, people still thought I was a good dude. I had a good reputation in the regiment. Yeah, and I still loved it. And I was like, this is when you leave. When you love something, you still want it. I still wanted more, and I think the fact that I missed it and I regretted leaving means I left at the right time. Yeah, because I know the Army is suffering on recruiting right now, and I fantasize sometimes that someone's going to walk up and say, "We'll make you a sergeant major right now if you'll come back." I'll be like, "Yes, I'll come back. Let's do it." I wouldn't because I'm old and my knees don't work like they should. Yeah. My patellas are lethal weapons; they'll shoot off and kill someone innocently. But I think I left at the right time, and I had a great supportive infrastructure and organization when I left the Army. Everybody was supportive. I went through the Army ACAP program. Yeah. I got resumes built, and I had a job. I left the Army on Friday as an E8, and I came back into work on the next day as a GS-13. Yeah. Fantastic.
That's all.
Yeah.
That's awesome, man. Yeah. Now, are you still working as a GS-13, or
I'm not.
Did you transition to something else?
Yeah, that was pretty short-lived. I thought the GS track would be great, and it was. It just wasn't for me. It was. I will tell you that we all find our own paths. Mm-hmm. For me, transitioning from a active combatant operator 18 series guy to a staff position as a GS-13 was not a good transition for me. It was too much brakes too soon. Mm-hmm. It was like. Now, I was still in a deployable role. I was a deployable civilian, but it was still not enough juice for the squeeze. Yeah. So I ended up becoming a jet contractor with the Joint Expeditionary Team. It was a DOD, JIDO, DITRA funded thing, and I deployed overseas for the next 5 years as a contractor, doing advisory support. Our main effort was to identify and help soldiers reduce explosive hazards on the battlefield, so IEDs, rockets, that kind of thing. I loved it. I was back in the mix, right? Going out on patrols, helmet, nods, and I got to work with like 101st, 82nd, 10th Mountain, 3rd ID. I loved it. I love 3rd ID. Dog-faced soldiers, I love those guys. And you're teaching all these young soldiers, and they're like sponges. Yeah. And they think about the JET program was absolutely fantastic. You're taking senior E8s, E9s, warrant officers, and putting them on teams. And with regular infantry, regular soldiers, regular Army soldiers, and they're getting the benefit of all this soft experience. And you're talking about how to patrol, how to mark lanes, how to, do CQB, all these things. So they get their own little 18 series advisor. Yeah. And I think it was a great program. The JET program literally just folded last month. It's gone away after, 15 years. Yeah. Fantastic program, and I loved it. I did that for 5 years. I loved the JET program. Still got great friends. Did Afghanistan and Iraq as a jet. Learned a ton. Great experience. And I love the fact that I got exposed to so many great soldiers. Again, it gave me renewed confidence in the Army. I loved it. Great leaders downrange. Great soldiers. And they're doing the best they can in Afghanistan and Iraq. Left that program. Did a brief stint as an analyst in Hawaii with SOCPAC. Loved it. Give a shout out to my buddy John Rutgers. That's a guy I stayed with here in Fort Bragg. He and I were on the SOCPAC staff. I was an analyst. Great time. And then did my 2 years there. That contract went away, and a friend of mine told me about an opportunity to do some more contracting, but in a different way. And that ended up being a position with the CIA's Global Response Staff. Nice. So I was a direct hire CIA staffer with the agency, something called Global Response Staff. They're the guys responsible for security for overseas operatives. Yeah. And so, great opportunity, a lot of training, and just a great opportunity to serve overseas. And it was a lot of fun working with a bunch of great guys, professionals. The Central Intelligence Agency has a ton of great professionals. It's a great place to work. Very, very tip of the spear stuff, very amorphous. Yeah. If you're going to go work that kind of work, you got to be agile. You got to be able to think on your feet, because it's like they got a lot of money and a lot of guts and a lot of confidence, and that's about it. So you better know what you're doing. And they're like, I think we can get away with that. We got away with a lot of good stuff over there. So I did that job for about 5 years as a CIA contractor. That was a lot of fun. And worked with guys. There's other guys out there that are on the YouTube format that are doing some good stuff and providing some of that knowledge from that time. And then, did that for a while. And the pandemic happened. Broke away from that because of the pandemic. We just weren't going overseas as much. There wasn't a need. Came back here to D.C. and went back to school. Went to George Washington for a while to get a degree. And then I got into a whole rediscovering. I think a lot of people, the pandemic hit and it's like, I'm going to rediscover myself. Well, I was one of those guys. I'm going to rediscover myself. And so, got into a lot of different aspects of DC, and one of them was acting. Oh. And I decided to give that a go.
Nice. How's that going? And then you can go right into the play that you were just a part of. Yeah. Will there be other shows? And if so, how can folks get over there?
Yeah. So I was very lucky and honored to be selected as a cast member for a play called The Team Room.
Mm-hmm.
It's a play written by Bill Raskin. He is a retired SF Lieutenant Colonel, Special Forces brother, 3rd group guy, 5th group guy. Did his team leader time in 3rd group, did his battalion command time in 5th group, did some time in some other places. And great screenplay, great playwright. Our director, Ray Fika, Mary Doble, the screenwriter, the stage manager, Gabby, her assistant, fantastic crew, and the cast is amazing. We got a great cast. The play is about a Special Forces ODA 824. There was an 8th group for a while down in Panama in the late 60s. So we are ODA 824. We are a free fall team.
Nice.
And the play, 2 acts, it focuses on the actual interconnection between team members, like the fact that we are on ODA. You got the team sergeant, the Bravos, the Charlies, the Deltas, the Echoes. Some guys are into side hustles. Some guys have family problems. Some guys are reminiscent about old missions. But all of it starts before 9/11, the day before 9/11. And then we roll into 9/11 and what that meant for a lot of ODAs sitting in the team room when that happened. And then we go to Afghanistan and what happens when we come back from Afghanistan. What happened to the team. Great play. It's playing at the Keegan Theater. We opened up October 7th. We're running to October 28th. We've done 9 shows. We have 9 shows left.
That's awesome.
And you can find more information if you go to the teamroomfoundation.org. And yeah, that's where you can get tickets and find out about the team room. The great thing is all of the proceeds go towards the SOF Warrior Foundation, the Special Operations Warrior Foundation. We're currently helping over 1,000 kids of fallen SOF warriors go to college, and it's a cradle to grave thing where they learn how to they learn how to get ready for college. They go to college, and then we see them all the way through until they graduate. So it's a great program, and that's where all of our funds go. They pay the bills for the theater. They pay the bills for the stage stuff, the desks and everything else, and then all the rest of the money goes to the Special Operations Warrior Foundation.
Now, will there be other shows? Will this be a ongoing thing?
We're hoping so. Bill Raskin is the lead on the Team Room Foundation. General Linder is also Jim Linder is on the foundation as well. We've got a whole host of other folks who are deciding and figuring out the future of the team room. We're hoping we'd love to keep it going, but it's an endeavor to keep the team room going. We need a theater. We need additional funds to keep it going. We would still benefit the Special Operations Warrior Foundation, I think. And then there's like the cast, So is there talk of New York? Sure. Chicago, yeah. But that's the next horizon.
Yeah.
Right? We're gonna stay in this fight. We've got 9 shows down, 9 left, and we just love for people to come out and see the show. We've had great responses so far. A lot of folks from OLG have come out. A lot of guys, Ty and Donnie, a bunch of guys have come out already to see the show. I appreciate you. And SF Association has been great. A lot of folks from Kevin Harry and the rest of the guys from the SF Association have been super supportive. And we're hoping to just keep the momentum going, and we hope that the next horizon will be more shows. There's maybe talk of going to the different bases to come here to Fort Liberty. To go to Fort Campbell, if it's called Fort Campbell.
Fort Campbell.
And go to the groups. And
Yeah.
maybe do a show there. I think that would be fantastic. But I'm not on the planning board. They haven't asked Ray Lake's opinion.
Yeah.
I would love to continue to be a part of it and see it grow from there. I think it's a great message. We don't do that great of a job as U.S. Army Special Forces telling our story. And I think at the heart of the Special Forces story is the ODA.
Yeah.
That is, right? That's the heart of us. It's the people on an ODA.
Yeah.
From the captain, the team sergeant, the warrant officer, all the way down to the junior Bravo, the junior Charlies.
Yeah.
Those new guys coming on the team. That's the heart of it. The legacy that team has. Every team. 3112. Love your team. I spent time with your team. I mean, how serendipitous is that? Like, you're all in, man. That is. So I think that's the heart of and the message of Special Forces is the ODA, and that's what the team room is all about, telling that story about an ODA.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, well, hopefully you guys have more shows coming because I love to make it down there to see it.
Absolutely.
So that'll be great. Yeah. But yeah, before we close it off, man, any other advice you might have for SF guys or guys training to be SF, families, we'll hear what you got to say, and then we'll close it off.
Yeah, no, thanks for that. First of all, thank you so much.
Of course.
To you and to Nate for allowing me to be here. I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
I'm humbled. I'm honored to be here. I would say a message is, love, respect, take care of each other. That's all the other technical stuff has been said before, but love, respect, take care of each other for the operators, for yourself, for your family. Your family sacrifices a lot for you to do what you do. If you're looking to go to Special Forces, go for the challenge. Go for it. I hear a lot of guys say, I wish I would have gone. I never did try out. Try it out. And if it's not Special Forces, try something else. Go to aviation. Just, never stop looking for challenges. And always, love and respect. Love your fellow soldiers. Love yourself. Love your family. Respect. You should always come from a place of respect. What is the other person feeling? Empathy. I don't think you can go wrong in life if you have that. Love, respect, empathy, take care of each other.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Yeah. Well, yeah, I definitely appreciate you coming by, man. I think you're one of the more articulate guys we've had on the show, man, and that's awesome. Amazing story. And hopefully we can do some more things in the future, man. I'd love to have you back.
That'd be great.
And then we'll go from there. But yeah, guys, I appreciate you guys tuning in again. Raymond Lake or Ray Lake, right? Where can guys find you if they want to follow you? Instagram or?
Yeah, I'm on Instagram at Devil's Brigade LLC. That's just the name of the Devil's Brigade is a World War II unit, First Special Service Force. Shout out to our World War II brethren. They did the hard yards. They had canvas and leather, and that was it. We got Thinsulate and Gore-Tex. They had leather and steel and wood. Yeah. And they fought the Germans. So Devil's Brigade LLC on Instagram. That's really my main media platform right now. So.
Gotcha. Yeah, if you guys want to get a hold of them, ask them some questions, you can leave it in the comment section below, or you can find them on Instagram, guys. But yeah, I appreciate you guys tuning in. Hopefully you guys got something from Ray's story, right? Until next time, take care of yourself.